David and the Philistines, surviving in the refuge of the cave of Adullam. Synopsis. Fleeing the relentless pursuit of a jealous king who once hailed him as Israel's future, David seeks desperate refuge in the cave of Adullam, a vast limestone cavern in Judah's Shephelah foothills, its name meaning refuge, amid a landscape of enemies on all sides. What begins as solitary hiding transforms into unintended leadership when 400 desperate men, those in distress, burdened by debt, and discontented with Saul's erratic reign, gather to him, drawn by rumors of the anointed warrior who defies royal tyranny. Surrounded by Philistine threats and Saul's spies, David must forge this ragtag band into a fighting force while managing scarce resources, family safety, and the psychological toll of living as outlaws in a damp, dark hollow that tests whether future kingship emerges from cave-dwelling despair or divine preparation. In 9 months, the broken men who entered the cave will emerge as David's mighty men, faith-filled, fearless, and victorious. Acts 3:I. Flight and desperation. The sun casts long shadows across the Judahite hills as David stumbles toward the cave of Adullam in desperate flight. His recent escape from Gath, where he feigned madness before King Achish, leaving him isolated and spiritually exhausted. Behind him lies a trail of close calls. The priests of Nob slaughtered by Saul's order for providing bread and Goliath's sword. Saul's obsessive pursuit intensifying with each passing day, the chasm between his anointed status and his present humiliation widening like an abyss. The cave itself is a geological wonder carved into the limestone hills near the valley of Elah, not far from where he defeated Goliath in triumph, a geographical irony that torments him as he contemplates how far he has fallen from that moment of glory to hiding like a criminal in stone and shadow. David enters alone, the cool, damp air offering momentary reprieve from the heat of pursuit, the darkness enveloping him like the isolation of his anointed calling. He is stripped of every comfort, no palace, no royal favor, no security except the promise Samuel whispered years ago when he anointed him with oil before his father's house. He is chosen yet chaste, anointed yet hunted, a king in waiting reduced to fugitive desperation, and the weight of this contradiction threatens to crush his faith entirely. The cave becomes not merely shelter but a threshold, the line where David's life ceases to be David's responsibility and becomes entirely God's responsibility, the place where he comes to the end of himself. Word spreads through the countryside like fire through dry stubble. The son of Jesse, slayer of giants and deliverer from Philistine threats, hides in Adullam, a place whose very name invokes refuge. They come not as an organized army but as society's cast-offs. 400 men in distress, everyone in debt, and everyone discontented, drawn by rumors of a leader who refuses to bow to Saul's paranoid tyranny. These are farmers ruined by Saul's failed military campaigns and forced conscriptions, debtors crushed beneath the weight of usurious lenders exploiting wartime scarcity, malcontents who have lost faith in a king whose jealousy has metastasized into murder and whose rule has become indistinguishable from oppression. They arrive ragged and desperate, some carrying farming implements converted into crude weapons, others arriving empty-handed, their only asset being their willingness to follow a man who seems to understand their suffering. The cave's chambers fill with murmurs of grievance and tentative hope, the echoes of their collective pain bouncing off stone walls that have sheltered many fugitives before them. David becomes their captain, not through military ambition, but through circumstance and the recognition in their eyes that he is one of them, hunted by power, rejected by authority, but somehow still bearing the mark of divine purpose. The transformation from solitary fugitive to commander of 400 desperate men happens almost unconsciously, as if each newcomer recognizes in David something worth following despite, or perhaps because of, his current vulnerability. Act 2. The Cave of Troubled Men. The interior of Adullam reveals itself as both sanctuary and crucible. The main chambers are vast enough to accommodate the growing population, their walls naturally smooth from ancient water flow. Their acoustics amplifying David's voice during evening councils where grievances are aired and strategies debated. Side passages serve as sleeping quarters, stratified by loyalty and strength, with the most vulnerable, women, children, and the elderly, secured in the deepest chambers furthest from entrances where Saul's spies might penetrate. Water drips constantly from stalactites into natural catch basins, cool and clear, rationed carefully against the arid Shephelah climate where springs are few and seasonal wadis unreliable. Food arrives through networks of sympathetic Judahites risking Saul's terrible wrath, loaves from hidden bakeries, dried figs and dates smuggled from harvest stores, occasionally sheep lost from Philistine herds during daring night raids that simultaneously feed the growing band and strike at their enemies.
Time is short.
The logistics are staggering. 400 men consume resources at a rate that no hidden cave can sustain indefinitely, forcing David to organize carefully, designating hunters, scouts, and foragers, establishing rationing systems that prevent riots when supplies dwindle, maintaining morale through his presence and his harp. David's family arrives within days, descending from Bethlehem under cover of darkness, seeking the protection of their son and brother, now that Saul's wrath extends beyond David to anyone connected to him. This is a gift of extraordinary grace. Previously, David's own father had humiliated him by leaving him in the fields to tend sheep while inviting Samuel to bless his other sons, and his brothers had mocked him when he visited their war camp during the Goliath incident. Now they come to his cave, recognizing in their erstwhile outcast a leader and provider, seeking shelter beneath his authority. Jesse, David's aged father, requires protection and care. His mother needs safety. Siblings and their families crowd into the deepest chambers, their presence simultaneously anchoring David emotionally and complicating his role as commander responsible for hundreds of strangers. Hakru. Living and working with these 400 troubled men in the Cave of Troubles becomes the Lord's perfect plan to teach David lessons he could only learn through immersion in genuine human struggle. Each man carries invisible wounds. The farmer crushed by conscription into endless wars, unable to harvest his fields or feed his children. The debtor beaten by creditors and on the edge of selling his family into slavery. The politically discontented who have watched Saul's paranoia consume good men and tear apart the fabric of the kingdom. David learns leadership not through academic instruction but through daily necessity, mediating disputes between former rivals, allocating scarce resources with fairness, maintaining morale when hope seems luxurious, and discovering that kingship is fundamentally about serving people in their brokenness, not commanding them from on high. Discipline emerges from chaos through careful organization. Dawn patrols scout Philistine movements from Gath and Succo, mere miles west through valleys like Elah, where ancient battles echo with current threat. Dugwo. Midday training transforms plowshares into spears, teaching formation tactics to men more accustomed to fields than warfare, building cohesion through repetition and the shared experience of learning together. Evenings bring David's harp, and with it, psalms composed in cave shadows. Verses like Psalm 57, "Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me, for in you my soul takes refuge." And Psalm 142, "I cry aloud to the Lord," channeling collective bitterness into shared faith, transforming despair into worship. Act 3. The Massacre at Nob. The crisis that shatters the fragile peace of Adullam arrives through a single messenger bearing news of catastrophe. Saul has massacred the priests of Nob. Fire. On David's way to the cave initially, he had come to Ahimelech, the priest at Nob, seeking provisions and weapons. Ahimelech, apparently unaware of Saul's vendetta against David, had given him bread, the consecrated bread of the presence normally reserved for priests, and miraculously, the sword of Goliath, the very weapon David had used to slay the giant, wrapped in cloth behind the ephod. Sir, Yamnitzer Japert Bandemik, Yingskin Trokindidan. Shat. The sword had been preserved as a memorial to David's triumph, an artifact of his greatest victory, and now it becomes a symbol of his greatest catastrophe. Saul had learned of the encounter through Doeg the Edomite, a herdsman who had been at Nob when David appeared, and the king's response was absolute and terrible. Saul ordered the execution of Ahimelech and all the priests of the Lord, killing approximately 85 priests in a single act of religious genocide. Only Abiathar, Ahimelech's son, escaped the slaughter, fleeing to David at Adullam carrying the ephod, the priestly instrument for divine consultation, and joining himself to David's band.
You are safe here.
The significance is devastating. Saul has destroyed the priesthood of Israel, severing the nation's connection to institutional worship, all because David sought survival. David's response combines devastation and acceptance. I knew it. When I saw Doeg the Edomite there that day, I knew he was sure to tell Saul, "Now I have caused the death of all your father's family." Why? The guilt crushes him. These deaths are his responsibility, consequences of his flight rippling outward to innocent people who were simply providing hospitality to a fugitive. Yet in accepting this guilt, he offers Abiathar sanctuary. "Stay here with me, and don't be afraid. I will protect you with my own life, for the same person wants to kill us both." Yastir. The massacre transforms Adullam's composition. They now harbor the surviving high priest of Israel, making the cave not merely a military base but a spiritual center, a place where the priesthood of Israel has paradoxically found refuge in a criminal's hideout. Akphir, leadership forged in fire. The prophet Gad appears to David with divine instruction. Leave the stronghold and return to the land of Judah. The command seems counterintuitive. Stay in the protective cave or move back into more exposed territory. Yet David obeys, moving to the forest of Hereth, demonstrating that even in crisis, prophetic direction supersedes strategic logic. The mobility prevents him from becoming trapped, forces the band to remain active and vigilant, and prevents stagnation that would destroy morale in a captive population. Leadership structures solidify over weeks and months. Joab emerges as David's primary commander, harsh and uncompromising, enforcing discipline through ruthlessness. Abishai, his brother, proves himself in daring raids. The three mighty men distinguish themselves through feats of courage and loyalty. Der Strut. One story crystallizes David's character and theirs. During a campaign, David expressed a longing for water from the well of Bethlehem, his hometown, a casual nostalgia perhaps, or a moment of weakness thinking of home. 3 of his mighty men took it to heart and at great risk broke through Philistine lines, drew water from the well, and brought it back to David. Scene 2. When David realizes the foolish danger they embraced for his mere wish, he refuses to drink the water. Instead, he pours it out as an offering to God, telling them they must never again risk their lives for his personal comfort. The gesture demonstrates a crucial truth. David's leadership is not based on demanding service, but on honoring those who serve, recognizing that their lives are more valuable than his desires. Over 9 months in and around Adullam, the 400 men in distress, in debt, and discontented transform into David's mighty men, faith-filled, fearless, and victorious. The cave becomes a refinery where despair burns away and character is forged. The farmer learns to stand in formation. The debtor discovers dignity in serving something greater than his creditors. The politically discontented finds purpose in building something new. They emerge not as a ragtag band of refugees, but as warriors, not through military training alone, but through shared suffering, common purpose, and a leader who suffers alongside them rather than above them. Act 4. Enemies and encirclement. External threats intensify as word spreads of David's growing power. Philistine raiders test Judah's borders with increasing frequency, their proximity forcing David to transition from pure survival mode into guerrilla warfare. His men raid Philistine outposts for supplies, taking cattle and grain, striking targets, and vanishing into the limestone passages and wilderness that Saul's larger armies cannot easily penetrate. The raids simultaneously feed the growing band and demonstrate that David is a force to be reckoned with, not merely a hunted fugitive. Saul responds with paranoia-fueled sweeps through Judah, stationing troops in towns, posting rewards that tempt potential betrayals, slaughtering anyone suspected of harboring David.
Shh, the guards. Hide it quickly.
Yet the population's allegiance is shifting. Saul's massacres have alienated even supporters, while David's fairness and his refusal to exploit common people endear him to Judahite hearts. Priests come forward offering support. Villages provide supplies not from fear, but from hope. Even some of Saul's own officers begin questioning the king's mental stability. A crisis erupts when Saul learns David is near Keilah and attempts to trap him by surrounding the town. David consults Abiathar with the ephod, asking God directly whether the men of Keilah will betray him to Saul. The answer comes clearly: they will. David's trust in prophetic guidance over human logic saves him. He evacuates immediately, preventing encirclement, though the decision means abandoning Keilah to Saul's wrath and enduring accusations that his presence brought suffering. The weight of such decisions accumulates. Every strategic choice has human consequences. Every evacuation means someone is left behind. Every survival requires sacrifice. Act Teagues, the covenant with Jonathan. In the midst of this darkness, David's friendship with Jonathan, Saul's son, provides an anchor of grace and humanity. Jonathan arrives at David's hideout bearing the knowledge that Saul's vendetta is only intensifying, his own position as crown prince making him complicit in tyranny he abhors. The two embrace like brothers, David and Jonathan weeping together as Jonathan reaffirms their covenant. Go in safety, for we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord shall be between me and you, and between my offspring and your offspring, forever. Jonathan recognizes that David, not himself, will be king, and he chooses to love David and support his claim, even though it means renouncing his own birthright. The friendship provides David with emotional sustenance no military victory could offer, proof that even in his exile, he is loved and valued by someone from the very court hunting him. ACTS 7. The transformation complete. The cave of Adullam becomes the birthplace of David's legendary mighty men, the warriors whose names and deeds will echo through Israel's history. To Asahel, swift-footed and dauntless, Eleazar, who stood alone against Philistines until his hand was weary and cleaved unto the sword. Shammah, who defended a field of lentils against Philistine raiders. The three who broke through enemy lines for water, all emerge from these months of desperation and deprivation forged into something harder and more precious than mere soldiers. But perhaps more significantly, David himself transforms during these months from a frightened fugitive into a true leader. He learns that kingship is not about crowns or palaces, but about serving people in their brokenness, about bearing the weight of decisions that affect hundreds of lives, about maintaining faith when circumstances provide no rational basis for hope. He learns that God's promises are not automatic. They require his active participation, his willingness to move when the prophet Gad instructs, to fight when opportunity presents, to show mercy when power would justify cruelty. The cave that means refuge becomes paradoxically a place of transformation rather than mere hiding. It is in the depths of darkness that David's true nature emerges, not the polished court musician, not the victorious giant slayer, but the shepherd king who will one day lead Israel to its greatest power, a leadership forged in caves, tested in wilderness, and grounded in intimate knowledge of human suffering.